The number of children identified with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, has been steadily rising in the past 20 years. The CDC says about 1 in 36 children in the U.S. have been identified as having ASD. The developmental disorder can affect a child's social skills, communication, and behavior. And we have just the person here to help us break it all down. Clinical psychologist Cynthia Martin is the senior director of the Autism Center at the Child Mind Institute. And she joins us now with advice on how we can talk to loved ones about autism. Welcome, Cynthia.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. So stereotypes are always a problem, but how are they particularly problematic when dealing with trying to explain autism?
Great question. I think one of the reasons that they're particularly problematic when talking about autism is because autism is such a spectrum, and the way it presents in one child is going to be very different from how it presents in another child. So parents are often battling this because they're trying to help people understand their unique individual child. And so when loved ones come in with these preconceived notions of what they think autism is, they're likely very misaligned with the child who's in front of them.
So then how should parents explain to the rest of the family what the diagnosis means and how people should interact?
Absolutely. So I think one thing that's helpful is to actually have family members do some background work to educate themselves on autism. So provide family members and friends with resources that are credible and can provide a lot of general information about what autism is, how it affects people in general, and then from there go into the more individual questions about how autism individually affects the child. For a lot of people, autism is going to be a little bit more like a social learning disability. So it doesn't mean that the child can't communicate or can't navigate social situations, but it's that they're going to do it differently than other kids their age, and how it looks might be different than it looks for other kids their age.
Can you give us a sense of that spectrum? Like, what are some of the how can autism present on one end of the spectrum versus the other?
Great question. And so I think one thing there to think about is we often think of a spectrum like this in a linear fashion, but autism is actually much more multifaceted. So one of the ways I kind of like to explain that is thinking about the difference between an oven and the stovetop. So if you're heating an oven, you can have a consistent temperature of 200, 400. You can't be 250 and 500 at the same time, right? And so, but autism isn't really like that. It's not that you can be here or you can be here. It's much more like the stovetop, where you could have 4 different burners going at any time. One might be really high, one might be low, and that might change rapidly. And that might change depending on the situation you're in or what else is going on or what your stress level is like. So it's much more multifaceted and multivariable than people really imagine.
I was going to say, I mean, it's also multivariable in a family dynamic, right? So there's the variables of the child themselves, what the child's going through, what the parent is going through, the rest of the family, neighbors, I mean, the community, how to interact. When it comes to the parent themselves, they've got to educate themselves. Then they educate their community and their family. But then they often feel isolated and stressed out themselves.
Absolutely.
So what can they do for resources to get themselves help to get through this?
Absolutely. Well, I think where parents can actually get the most help is from their community and from their close friends and family members. So I think close friends and family members knowing that one of the best things they can do is provide non-judgmental emotional support. So that means just listen. Listen, be available, don't try to offer advice, don't try to minimize how the parent is feeling. Don't say, oh, you worry too much, or oh, they'll outgrow
we
this.
all try to do that. We want to make people feel better.
We want to help.
Really
we do
quickly,
it to try to help.
Because we don't have much time, how do we talk about autism to a child that has it and the siblings?
Absolutely. So we want to be really open with the child, and we want to let kids know if they have a medical diagnosis of autism, that's important information about their development. That's important medical information to them. We should tell kids that they have an autism diagnosis, so then they can decide what that's going to mean for them and how they may or may not want that to be part of their identity.
Super valuable information. Thank you very much, Dr. Cynthia Martin. Appreciate it.
Thank you.